Expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of WBGR Network. Any questions or concerns about what is said should be directed to the show host, whose information will be provided upon request.
Sexy lady who walks around without being shady, who knows her values, who's gone through trials. Her smiles are captured from mouth to mouth. It's not the size of her thighs she worries about, but the pride she thrives to keep that drive. That cinnamon twist, that cinnamon twist, that cinnamon twist. Ladies, can you feel me? That cinnamon twist, that cinnamon twist, that cinnamon twist.
Hey everybody, it is your girl Tasha, known to the world as the Tasha Carpenter, but everybody calls me your girl Tasha because when you hang with me, it is like you are hanging with your girl. And today in the studio, guys, we are going to talk about something that's serious. You know, your girl Tasha, I float about all the different topics that we have here, but today is a very serious topic, dealing with domestic violence. So I actually have two guests in the studio today. We're going to go ahead and open up the camera so you can see their wonderful faces. I'm actually going to allow them to introduce themselves to you for a change instead of me just calling out their name, and we're going to split up everything because we got a viewpoint of domestic violence from a female as well from a male perspective, and they're both survivors. So, ladies first.
Hey everyone, my name is Rene Michelle, and I am a advocate and survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault.
And my name is Tariq Cunningham, and I also am an advocate and survivor of domestic violence as well.
All right, they gave y'all the short versions, right? So,
okay, so look.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? What exactly, with you being advocates, are you guys doing? Or should we just start from the background and share a little bit about both of your stories about how things got started? Because I really, we just gonna just flow here. That's
all right.
Like we talking, y'all. I'm your girl, and we're talking here. So, how long ago were you a victim?
It's been 27 years now. If I could elaborate, share my story.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. When I normally share my story, I like to share a little bit about my childhood, so you all could understand or have a better understanding of where I come from and why I move the way that I do. At an early age, I was molested by several family members as early as 5. At the ages of 11, 14, and 26, I was raped. I eventually met this young man who I thought was going to save me from all my past trauma and pain. I actually thought he was going to be my knight in shining armor, but he ended up being more like a nightmare. He was really nice in the beginning, you know. He said all the right things, did all the right things. And then over a short period of time, I started noticing changes in him. And I want you all to pay close attention to some of the things that I'm going to mention to you because they're signs of an abusive personality. He started to tell me what to wear, what I couldn't wear, where I could go, where I couldn't go. He isolated me, not only from my friends, but from my family as well. He started stalking me. I couldn't even go to work. He scheduled his hours around mine, and he would come and sit in my job. I managed a restaurant and lounge, so he would sit in my job and watch me. Anyone that talked to me longer than he thought that they should have, he would actually start a physical altercation with them. It got to the point where he was barred from my job, and then he started calling my job to tell me to leave the phone off the hook so he could hear everything that was going on. Needless to say, that didn't last. Then he started to come back up to my job, and he would stand outside and wait for me to get off. And although I went through all of this, I still did not equate any of it to domestic violence because I failed to mention to you all earlier that I am also a second generation domestic abuse survivor. I grew up watching my father abuse my mother, and my mother was being beaten. These things that were happening to me, it didn't seem like domestic violence to me, but I later found out that it definitely was. So the stalking and all that stuff continued, and I honestly, in the beginning, thought it was cute. I thought it was cute. I was like, oh my God, he loves me so much that he he doesn't want to be away from me. And it got really uncute really fast. The verbal abuse started, the mental abuse started, the emotional abuse, and then the physical abuse finally came in. And I can remember the very first time that he ever hit me as if it was yesterday. I told him rather that I wanted to go to the store, and he said to me, go ahead and come right back, which is very unusual because I could not go anywhere. I mean, literally, I couldn't go from my apartment, which was across the walkway, to his apartment by myself without him. That's how, serious it was. And this particular day, he told me to go ahead, so I was shocked. So I went to the store and I came back 15, 20 minutes tops. By the time I got back to his apartment where he stayed with his sister, his brother-in-law, and their twins, who were 5 at the time, I knocked on the door and he opened the door. He immediately grabbed me by my hair and he drugged me into the apartment past his sister, his brother-in-law, and their 5-year-old twins as they sat there and watched television, and took me into the room and began beating me. And he beat me bloody. He then, after he finished beating me, he grabbed me by my hair and he stood me up and he turned me around so I could look at him, and he told me, you're not leaving me, right? At this point, I'm so scared. Of course I said, no, I'm not. And then he said, good, because if you do, this is what I'm going to do. He took a gun and he put it up to my head and he pulled the trigger. He began to make Russian roulette a regular part of my life from that point on, to keep me in fear. And it worked. I was so afraid of this man. Everything he told me to do, I did it. It was like I was no longer Rene. I was just a shell and like a robot. I just did whatever he said. At this point, the cat's out the bag now, so I know who he really is. So now it's like the beatings came more often. He had nothing else to hide. And it got to the point where he even started beating me in public, at metro stations. No, it didn't matter. He would just, wherever he blacked out at, that's where he would hit me and beat me. One particular day, we were leaving his apartment, and this is how unpredictable he was. We were walking down the steps. I was walking behind him, and he just turned around out of nowhere and uppercutted me back up the steps. And to this day, I still don't know why or where it came from or whatever. But at this point, I had to try to think of ways to get away from this man. So I really honestly didn't have much faith in God because of everything that I had endured through my whole life. So, but I had just enough. So I prayed. I prayed to God that he got me out of that situation alive. And one particular day, I happened to be sitting in his window, just gazing out of his window, and I saw 2 females at my door. When I say isolation, when it comes to domestic violence, is so real. Nobody visited me for over a year. I dealt with all of this for over a year, and I had no visitors. This particular day, I look out the window and I see 2 females standing at my door. I can't see exactly who they were, but I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I have to, get over there. So he's in the bathroom, and I say to him, I'm going to run to my apartment and I'll be right back. Again, he said, go ahead and come right back. When I say I ran like a freed slave, I ran. And by the time I got to my apartment, the 2 females were in the car pulling off. I chased the car down, and it just so happened to be 2 of my cousins who decided that day that they were going to come and check on me. I told them, don't ask any questions, grab anything that looks important, and run. And we all ran into my apartment. each grabbed a handful of my clothing, and I ran for my life, and I didn't look back. But when I left, I didn't leave alone. I eventually found out I was pregnant by my abuser. I now have a beautiful 27-year-old daughter by my abuser. And as I sit with you all today, I also suffer from epilepsy due to severe blows to my head at the hands of my abuser. But I'm alive. And I know for a fact it's not for nothing. Because when they flew me away to Baltimore, because I had 6 seizures in a row, they actually lost me on the helicopter. And they resuscitated me. So that, for a fact, lets me know, and I know with everything in me, that this is the reason why God spared my life, is because so I could help other people as far as domestic violence and sexual assault is concerned. So that's what I truly believe with every ounce of my being, is that this is my purpose. And I made a promise to God that day when I told him if he got me out of that situation alive, that I would do anything. And that was the promise that I kept to him, and I've been doing that ever since. I've left. Well, actually, I started speaking out in 2012. That's when I started sharing my story as far as everything was concerned, and I've been doing that ever since. But that's my story.
That's a large story.
Yeah.
We thank you for definitely sharing.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
You got some people sharing Purple Hearts in the chat. Some people are expressing that they are also domestic violence survivors. We want to make sure that each one of y'all, they're sharing, you hit share. Share doesn't cost anything. Share and invite with everybody, because you don't know if someone is suffering from it. You could be with somebody every day and they could be a victim and you have no idea about it. So please share and invite. Right. And also remember, guys, if you want to call in and ask questions, you can reach in on 301-429-9247. Now, I'm going to maintain a lot of the stuff that she said in her head, and I want to also hear from Mr. Tariq, your story as well, too. Because this is, both of them were actually referred to me, guys. Y'all have seen Queen Effie on my show before, when we had the teenagers and talking about, sex and stuff like that, taboo talk that people don't want to talk about. She actually referred both of them to me.
My sister.
Her sister, sister friend.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, what do you call her? Like your sister, mom?
I just call her Queen.
Just Queen, just Queen.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot from
her. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hear your story, Tariq.
Mine is somewhat unique in its own, because for the longest time I never realized I was going through domestic violence. Reason why I say that is because growing up, I experienced a lot of it. So I saw a lot of it firsthand, through family, even through school, watching female friends of mine getting beat by their boyfriends and me interjecting and things of that nature. But what brought me to the realization of it myself and made me sort of reflect back was when I did meet Queen Effie, and it started having me reminisce on different aspects, because like a lot of people, I was stuck on a notion that domestic violence was only physical, and it was only with regards to a female. And when I think about it, I went through the domestic violence in the sense of the mental abuse, the financial abuse, as well as the emotional abuse. In the sense that I had a female that definitely comes to mind all the time whenever I speak on it, because I felt that I was truly in love with her, felt that she was the one for me, everything I felt was going good. But, it's something that you had said, Rene, that sort of sparked me, because she used to do a lot of that checking up on me. Calling me up, where you at, what you doing, who you with. She hit somebody in the background, who's that? And it got real. It somewhat got a little outhanded. But, me being who I was at that time, because I'm a street dude, but, I felt it was like, man, she loved me. She just, being protective of her man, so on and so forth. And I'm telling her all the time, look, I'm all right. But it became a thing of, she had what I thought was a brother that was locked up, and I'm giving her money, and this money thing became a regular issue, to where I wanted to introduce her to this one particular day, to my kids. So I go to bring my kids over, thinking we going, have a nice weekend and so on and so forth. And I'm somewhat of a neat freak, And I go into the bedroom and this paper screwed across the bed, things of that nature. So I'm like, man, why she got the bedroom all messed up? I go to straighten up and I'm seeing letters written, but ain't none of these letters written from me. So I'm sort of straightening up and I notice I'm seeing little hearts and the word love written across, and I'm like, hold up. So long story short, this brother wasn't a brother. This was a dude that she was dealing with. And I happened to notice in the wording, it's saying, man, yeah, make sure your man send me some more money, that money right on time, so on and so forth. I can't wait till I get home so we can start working on our family. You can have my baby. And I'm like thinking, I got my kids here. I'm about to introduce you to. So I go immediately just, I go in reaction mode to where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go ahead and evict. I'm ready to go. But I go to gather my stuff. She comes in as I'm gathering my things together, and I call one of my men up to get my stuff. And she goes off talking about where you going, you ain't leaving nowhere, this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. And she goes pushing and pulling on me. So in my defense, I just moved her out my way. I mean, I'm like 5'8". You know what I'm saying? At that time, I probably weighed about maybe 170, 165. She was like 110, maybe like 4'11". You know what I'm saying? So I just like, look, I'm ready to go. I'm getting up out of here. Unbeknownst to me, the neighbors downstairs, they hear the commotion. They call the police. The police come inside. I'm thinking this is on my benefit to help me. Mm-hmm. So immediately I'm like, hey, man, y'all need to let her know, man, I'm ready to go. I'm trying to get up out of here. So they see stuff thrown around and stuff. I'm trying to hurry up and just gather my things. I'm like, I'm trying to hurry up. I was trying to get out of here before she got there.
Right.
So in the police questioning me, immediately it said, what's going on? I'm telling them what's going on. I'm trying to leave. And as soon as I was ready to think I'm getting ready to go, one of the other officers has her off to the side, speaking to her, and next you know, he comes over. Did you touch her? I said, touch her? I said, what you talking about? I said, man, I moved her out my way. And I did my hand like this. Immediately, that throws me in. So now I'm getting locked up. But I'm thinking back on that, it was also a play of words to where it was always said, and I tell my young men tell my young men even today the same thing, and my, men that's coming home, from doing time, never stay with a female and your name is not on the lease. Because the first thing that's used against you is, this ain't your place, you got to go. Or they play on the fact that you're on probation. And I think back, that was a lot that was played on me. I was on probation. I just come home from Lorton at the time. So now it was a thing of, now you playing with my freedom. So she tells police, yeah, I hit her. But I never touched her. Now you got me locked up. But then a few days later, then you want to come down, you want to apologize, you want to talk I'm going to drop the chop. It's too late. You done already got me in this. And it played on for a good while. And then it was other relationships that I went through that same thing with, And that's how I never really paid much mind to it. Because in my mind, or my understanding was, I'm out in the street, I'm doing this, that, and that. Man, these little petty charges like that, I'm not worrying about that. But then, like I said, once I met Queen of Fee, and then in talking with her and getting that understanding, it really expounded on me a lot to where now I talk to guys now, and it's like it's funny. I see young men, they might have a scratch on them or something like that, and I'm like, man, when you start liking cats? Oh, nah, man, she was just upset. Hold up, that's not right. Because if the tables was turned, you be the one getting locked up. And I find that a lot of young men don't look at it that way. I had a conversation not too long ago when me and Queen of Fee, I spoke at an event she did just a week ago, and it was said that one of the other men had mentioned how a lot of times men, they laugh when he talks and shares his story. And I said, well, I feed off of that. Because I find that when they laughing, it's really because they reminiscing and they felt that same thing. Because a lot of times we as people, we sort of laugh off that hurt. Right. You know what I'm saying? When you hear something that's really touching, you don't want to show it. You don't want to show your vulnerability. Man, yeah, you feeling that. And those are the ones I start to point in and zone in on. Because I know you've been through. I had a female that I didn't like having conversations with her when she was in the kitchen. Because she was famous for picking up something. She always want to have a conversation. She want to talk. And you started picking up knives. Nah, I'm not doing all that, Slim. We not talking out there. I'm not doing that. And it got real, it got real and different because you'll get females that say stuff like, well, you ain't no man, and I'll get somebody else, and they start playing with you, in the sense of you're saying stuff you real negative. I mean, I hear females all the time, and they'll be with a dude, and everything is good, but then as soon as you break up, first thing you want to say, well, you little. I'm like, hold up, see, you know you wrong. I put right up on the female, and then you know you wrong. How long you with the dude? You with it for 2 years? Oh, so it was little 2 years, but now all of a sudden it got little, right? So you wrong. You don't do that. And a lot of females don't understand the language that they're using. And a lot of times, being that I grew up around domestic violence so much so, to where I felt like I would never put no harm physically to my woman, it made me now, at the age I'm at now, which I just turned 49, but it made me feel like I have a trust issue with certain women. Why are you coming at me the way you coming at me?
So tell me, with both of you guys, you both witnessed domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Now, with you saying that yours was, you were seeing men beat on women, do you think you witnessed anything where the women, well, not beat on women, but do you think you witnessed where men were victims when you were younger? And likewise with you. Did you ever think about it when you learned your story that men, as Queen Afee always says, men hurts too? Mm-hmm. How long did it take before you realized that our brothers go through it just as much as our sisters do when it comes to domestic violence?
I mean, it took a while for me to realize that because they hide it more because of them, their ego, their masculinity. They don't want to be, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to me as a woman to admit that I was being abused. So I can imagine how a man feels. But I remember, some of the things that happened in my past. And verbal and mental abuse happen often in my house and with family members as well. So I didn't know the name and all that stuff back then. But now that I'm where I am now, I definitely can say I do remember those things.
And for you, Tariq?
I don't think I even realized it until, like I said, I met Queen Afee. It was like, it was non-existent. But now it's like when I look at certain situations, I see a lot of physical abuse also.
Yeah.
With regards to men now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see it a lot with the young ladies.
Yeah.
I was at a middle school trying to initiate a program I was trying to do up there. And the kids was playing in the gym, and it was the females going harder than the young men, hitting on them.
Yeah.
I mean, just blatantly throwing blows. Like, it was nothing. And I hear it all the time in the work that I do, because I'm working juvenile justice, but I hear it all the time. Man, them females, they worse than the boys. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because a lot of times you get the females, they feel like they got to be super exertive with the things to sort of protect them or make them stronger. So they got to come harder. When I work in certain areas, it's one thing I always tell a lot of my mothers I deal with: stop telling your children that you're the mother and their father. Mm-hmm. I'm very strong on that because I'm a father who facilitate also. But I say that in the sense that you're demasculating the young men when you say that. And then you make these young women, feel like, well, what's the purpose of me having a man then?
So what are your thoughts about people, we have a comment where Afee said, absolutely, Rene, they do hide it. Mm-hmm. We have Andre Johnson saying, it's the same when it comes to a man getting raped as well too, mm-hmm. because a lot of people just don't believe that it can happen.
Right.
Okay, and they don't listen to it. So we're looking at, I pulled up some statistics, mm-hmm. and one of the things that it said was about high schools, that 4% of high school students report being hit, slapped, or physically hurt on purpose by
mm-hmm.
their boyfriend and or girlfriends, and that was in the last 12 months, and this report was done in 2019. So with that, what kind of advice, because again, I mentioned earlier that people need to share this, because sometimes you could be my girlfriend and I have no idea that you're going through it. You could be my brother and I have no idea that you're going through it. So what do you say to the person who's on the outside that may be ignoring the signs? Because you guys some people cover up the signs really good. Absolutely. It's like a chameleon. Mm-hmm. So what do we look for? Or what do you wish, when your heart was crying out, what should somebody have paid attention to for both of you guys?
Well,
go ahead.
Well, for myself, I honestly would not say that I would have done anything different, because I think the way I handled my situation, because everybody asked me, how come you didn't leave when he was asleep, or how come you didn't crack him across his head, whatever. My thing was, everything that I did and the way that I did it is the only reason why I'm alive today. If I had did anything any different, I don't suggest for anybody to just jump up and leave an abusive situation. You have to plan it out. Luckily, I got away alive. I ran for my life, but my cousin wasn't as fortunate. I lost my cousin. She was shot 3 times and bludgeoned to death because she told her boyfriend it was over. And, you have to plan. As far as I'm concerned, takes clothing a little bit at a time to a friend's house, someplace that he doesn't know anything about. Just make plans. You can't just up and especially tell him that you're going to leave, because that's the worst thing you can do, because you'll end up 90% of the time dead. I mean, like I said, my cousin was an example of that. But, yeah.
So the recommendation, I see you, Queen. Domestic violence, the National Domestic Violence website had a link to the statistics. So if they're wrong, I thought 4% myself was a little bit low there to come out and find it out. But that's what they had published for 2019. So I know Queen is one that she promotes that if you're going to get out the relationship, that you don't announce it.
Exactly.
You got to move silently.
Exactly.
And this applies to both male and females.
Definitely.
And Queen, feel free to call in if you like on 301-429-9247, or anyone else if you want to share some information in with it. You said you have a child?
Yes.
By your abuser?
Yes. She's 27 now. She's 27 now.
So what did you do differently when it comes to raising her and letting her know? Because I'm sure it's not something that people talk about every day.
Right.
Do you know that when someone, like they talk about some of the different types of domestic violence that you have, the physical abuse, as small as scratching, biting, or spitting on someone.
Right.
How do you tell your kids that, hey, if somebody spits on you, or they slap on you, or they punch on you, like you said, I thought it was cute.
Right.
I thought he loved me. That was puppy love. All this other kind of stuff. How did you teach your daughter differently? And do you have kids too?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so what is it that you guys communicate to your children since y'all have been through this?
Well, just to even touch on the fact of the puppy love and the hitting on, that's something that we was taught in school. Back when we was young. If he hits you, he likes
you. Right.
If she hits you, she likes you. So, I mean...
Words are powerful, guys.
They are. And I think the biggest thing that I find that's needed is the restructuring of the not the phobia, but the stigmas behind, the understanding or the misunderstandings that so many people have with it. Like I said, I just turned 49. I've been a Queen of Feet speaking with her for now, going on 5 years, maybe close to. So to go all the way into my 40s and not realize that the way in which I treat and handle myself with women is because of some of those older things that I dealt with, that's crazy. I mean, when I think back to the first time I got slapped by a female, I was in probably the 9th grade. And she did it dead on in the cafeteria in front of everybody.
Well, it's pretty interesting that you bring that up, because before I was coming, I was having a ride and I was talking to one of my friends, and they were telling me a story about something that their uncle went through and how they didn't realize when they were younger. But he brought up the whole thing because he has always been said, when you talking about words, that's puppy love and all this stuff, the thing about you never ever hit a woman.
Yep.
He is totally against that. He's like, don't talk that stuff to me. If the woman is going to hit you, you have a right to hit them back. And he is like so dead on about that in those cases, especially after learning what went on and how his uncle had been abused by the female in his life. So when you think about puppy love and don't ever hit a woman, and if the woman's being abusive, how do we balance all that stuff when we're communicating these things to our children and they're watching it grow up?
Well, I tell my daughters, because I have 2 daughters and a son, I tell my daughters to keep your hands to yourself. do not, under any circumstances, put your hands on anybody, because I don't want anybody touching you, because as soon as they do, it's going to be a problem. So keep your hands to yourself, period. I mean, as far as my daughter, I hate to call her my abuser's daughter, but that's what she is. She's, as far as her, she didn't know that her father had did what he did to me until she turned 18. I kept it from her. And when I ran from him. She didn't meet her father till she was 10.
Okay, I was gonna say, is he involved in her life?
Yeah. She when she turned 10 for her birthday, I asked her what she wanted, and she said she wanted to meet her dad. At this point, I'm like, oh my God, I never said anything negative about her father to her, because that situation between him and I had nothing to do with her. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about her father negatively to her. That's not going to benefit her. So, I showed her pictures of him, whatever. And then when she asked me that, I called that same aunt that he, drug me past. And she said to me, I told her that her niece wanted to meet the family. And she said to me, oh my gosh, well, he's saved now and all of these things, that's a blessing. I'm sure he wants to meet her, whatever. So this whole time I'm still scared to death. This is 10 years later. But because of my child, I did it. And I remember as a child how I felt about my dad, because my dad was a horrible husband, but he was a great father. So I remember how I felt when people dogged my father in front of me. So I put myself in my daughter's place. I took her there. I literally sat there with my daughter, after all the stuff this man did to me, and allowed him with his other children to get to know his daughter. I mean, for a long time, until she felt comfortable enough to be around him and the rest of the family without me. And then when she got to that point, I left her. Like I said, he was a great father, but he was just a horrible boyfriend or whatever. And the reason why my daughter finally stopped dealing with him was because when she turned 18, she came home from visiting him, and she told me that she didn't want to go around him anymore because she was tired of him talking negatively about me. After all these years, he's talking negative about me. So I was so upset. I called him, and I said a few choice words to him, and that same ugly monster that I knew back then reared his head. He was on speaker. But let me tell you what my daughter said. I mean, I was so upset I came out and blurted out, well, why are you talking negatively to me about my daughter? I mean, about me to my daughter. Did you tell her that you're the reason I have epilepsy? Now, mind you, my daughter never knew this. 18 years, I was never going to say anything negative about him. And that's how she found out. And she blacked out from that point, knowing that.
I'm sorry. I'm having a bad moment being authentically me. Afi, she said DNA is important. It's important she knows, because her dad is and always will be a part of her.
That's facts. Then that's what Queen taught me, too.
Okay, that might be facts. But your girl, Tasha, I got a problem with that. I truly do. I just cannot. Just hearing it. Mm-hmm. And the way I operate with my daughter, I don't talk negative. I'm not a victim of domestic violence. Attempts, but when you think about it, but I don't talk bad about her dad. But I can't imagine. I would be fearful to let my child, if after 10 years I've kept them separate, to allow my child to be there and get involved with them. I would have to have some kind of emergency measures, and to let her know, hey, if anything, call mommy, right?
Oh, it definitely was
all that stuff.
Yeah, it was definitely that.
They said that some DNA doesn't change as best they know. Okay, they could know it's their father, but they can know that their father been whipping on my ass too. I'm sorry. The Queen, you got me getting upset here. Some 3.3 million American children witness abuse in their homes every year. Is one of the statistics that actually goes in here. And I think that sometimes you have to have a balance between when you're talking to your children and what you tell them. But we have to be honest with our kids, because that's what sometimes causes them to get hurt. We can't paint that this is a white picket fence world out here. So I understand that. I will let them know there was a father, but I ain't about keeping children away from their parents. But for me, it couldn't have happened.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and with everything, it's like learn as you go. It's no, book on life, period. But that's the way I handled it, because that is.
She said they should know the truth. Okay.
Oh yeah, they should know the truth. But I feel like in the time period that you decide, every situation is different. In my situation, because of what I went through with my father, that's why I felt like I did not want my daughter to go through that. And trust me, I would never leave my daughter in a situation where I thought she was going to be harmed. She was there. We had a certain place, which was the aunt's house, where she was safe. And until she was okay with being around her sisters and her brothers and her, whoever, left alone, I stayed right there, fearful and all, but I didn't leave my child. You know what I mean? So, everybody handles things differently, but that's just the way I handled it.
So for your children, are any of your children by any of your abusers?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, one, my son, but that was it was in a sense of the abuse being physical, even with her. I think most of my physical abuse came from the women that I dealt with probably earlier on in my life, and then scattered throughout my adult life. And that's why I always just sort of broke away from relationships so quickly, like I did. Not understanding, like I said, the intricacies involved with domestic violence. I just felt like it was just something that I just didn't want to be bothered with. I ain't feeling this, and I just leave, not knowing it was domestic violence. But I mean, even like now, like I said, when I talk to my young women and I talk to my young men along with my children, I sort of lay out certain things that they need to be looking for. And I think the biggest piece, in answer to your question earlier, what do we feel is needed? I think the education and breaking down that stigma is the biggest piece. Like you said, the sharing of it. When I speak, a lot of times, even with Queen of Feet, I remember speaking in so many different engagements, and it's mostly women that's there. So when I speak, and then they hear that it's a male perspective, like, what? Now all of a sudden the heads start to turning, and the women say sitting up, and they listen. And they come to me at the end, like, I didn't know. I need to talk to my son. I didn't know. I need to talk to my brother. And I mean, I don't see a lot of men there. I invite the men. I invite the young men I work with. I invite guys that I know. But it's like that stigma, like you said. That
they think
that shame or that pride thing. And pride, I tell them all the time, that pride will get you hurt. I know a lot of men that's been stabbed by women, and they talk about it like it's passé. Ain't nothing cute about getting stabbed by a female. Right. Like I said, I had a female that used to like picking up knives. I'm not playing. I tell a female, I bleed easy. We ain't playing that game. Right. But I mean, the stigma behind it and everything is just so vicious that it's crazy. And then it's not even just, individuals themselves, but it's also the government, how they look at it. Because, like I said, for me to have to go through all that ridicule of being just taken in, process, go through book and this, that, and because a female just said it because she felt ashamed about what she did, that's too easy also. And a lot of females, they play on that, and they don't even realize they're the harasser.
Pride comes before destruction is what Miss Anderson, Erica Chapman in South Carolina said. Please talk about where domestic violence starts. It starts with verbal abuse. So I kind of want to touch base because some people don't realize that it's just physical. So different characteristics of domestic violence. Of course, we already talked about you definitely have the physical abuse. That's what everybody is used to. Physical abuse does not always leave marks or cause permanent damage. So people have to understand that. I mean, the one girlfriend, she was covering up with the marks on her neck with foundation. Had no idea that people had it going on. So you have to understand this. Burning, strangling, attacking or threatening to attack a person with weapons, a threat or actual attempts to kill you is all part of that physical abuse thing. There's the emotional and psychological abuse. And basically, emotional and psychological abuse is a behavior your partner uses to control you or damage your emotional well-being. It can be verbal, or nonverbal. Some signs of that would be name calling, mocking you, intimidation, and making humiliating marks or gestures towards you, yelling in your face or standing in a menacing way over top of you, manipulating your children. They don't even have to touch you at all. They could be manipulating your children to make you feel this way, telling you what to do or where you can go and cannot go. We've heard these things already in both of their stories. Placing little value on what you say. You know, that you tell them how you feel, and it's like, oh, girl, get out here now. You know it ain't like that.
Nothing, right.
Interrupting you, changing topics, not listening or responding, and twisting your words is a form of it. Putting you down in front of other people, saying negative things about your friends and your family, preventing or making it difficult for you to see friends or relatives, cheating or being overly jealous. We talked about that. Shifting responsibility for abusive behavior by blaming others or saying, you caused that. That's your fault. It ain't had nothing to do with me. That was you. Monitoring your phone calls, text, car, or computer use. Then there's the economic and financial abuse, guys. Of course, with that economic and financial abuse, as Tariq shared, happens when the abuser makes a victim entirely financially dependent on the abuser with no power or say in the relationship. I had a girlfriend who told me that her abuser basically would give her allowance to go to the store to purchase the groceries for their family that had 5 children. And if she brought that receipt back and that receipt said it was 2 pennies and change, she better had that 2 pennies and change, because if not, she was going to be thrown into the fireplace. Okay, so forbidding a victim from going to work or attend school. He prevented her from being able to read books. Knew that reading books was her love. Sabotaging your employment by giving the victim a black eye or visible energies prior to any or all important meetings. Jeopardizing employment by stalking the person or harassing the person. Denying access to a vehicle or damaging your vehicle. Withholding money or giving you allowance, denying access to bank accounts, hiding your family assets, running up debts. You over there like, but you like, I done had all that.
I done had quite a few.
All of that stuff.
That's why I see it so funny, because I never, it's not promoted like that.
Right.
You know, like I said, growing up, all I thought domestic violence was a female getting hit. She had a black guy, whatever the case was. I remember seeing friends of mine, and the girls used to wear the little hangover with the head, because they hiding that.
They're hiding black eyes.
I mean, it was crazy, but a lot. I mean, I've lost good paying jobs behind females coming up my job. I mean, I had one female. She called my job literally and told them, "Y'all think he up there working? He out there drinking and doing." I'm like, and my supervisor come to me like, "Tariq, what's going on?" Queen of Freaking even tell. I had somebody put a fake Facebook page up and
to follow you.
Trying to get friends of mine to follow them, and then just blasting all types of negative stuff out there talking about me.
Stalking and harassment. Checking up on you constantly. Embarrassing you in public. Refusing to leave when asked to leave. Making unwanted visits or unwanted messages through email, text message, or voicemail. And you know how many men I know they go through that and they think there's nothing wrong with it? It's nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
How about has anybody ever put a GPS on you and followed you with a GPS?
Yeah. I had a female call me one time talking about, "You look nice in that outfit today." I'm like, "What?"
Okay, what? You can't hear me?
I'm like, this is wild.
Is anyone else having problems hearing? I hear somebody saying they're having problems hearing. What's not typical? Okay, I don't know what they having their own little conversations in here in the chat. Guys, I forgot. I don't know if I have time to do it, but look, I want to make sure that we give out the domestic violence hotline phone number for some people, because somebody out there is going through and they're hearing about this and they're like, oh my goodness, it's supposed to have been on the screen, but I forgot to give it to them. But the National Domestic Violence Hotline phone number is 1-800-799-SAFE. So that's 7233. 1-800-799-SAFE is the number for that. You know, one of the statistics actually said in 15 states, more than 40% of all homicides of women in each state involve an intimate partner violence. In 36 states, more than 50% of the intimate partner-related homicides of women all involve having a gun as well too. I didn't know the coalition. Did you know it's a correlation between homeless people and women? They say that 63% of the homeless women are homeless because they flee the domestic violence relationship.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm just
That's true.
thinking that's just like so crazy. So with you, how did you get on? How did you? I understand why you became an advocate, but what type of things are both of you doing to go out in the community, or do you have any type of events that's coming up, or do you have a good story where you believe that your testimony saved somebody's life that you want to share? My mind is like bouncing all around. That's just the way I operate.
Well, it's for me right now. I am doing a lot. Like I said, I'm a national advocate against domestic violence and sexual assault. I speak nationally or whatever, but I also get women, men, and children into safe housing that are running from domestic abuse. And sometimes I live in the Charles County area, but I help everybody everywhere. My number is 24 hours a day. People
How
are
do
calling
they
me.
contact you guys?
On my Facebook, I'm Rene Michelle, Rene with the accent, Michelle. Instagram, every social media, Rene Michelle. You can contact me there, or basically that's where you can contact me at, is on my social media, mainly Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, and you live in Charles County.
I live in Charles County, and there, if I can't get someone into a safe house that particular night, I'll use my own money to put them up in a hotel. And I've been doing that for years now, but that's just, a few of the things that I do. I'm an author as well. I have 2 books on Amazon. One is a bestseller. I'm just doing a lot. I speak at the House of Delegates. I'm sharing my story, trying to get bills passed against domestic violence as well. So, I'm doing everything that I possibly can to try to help put an end to all of this. And I'm so happy that you stood up, as a man and are speaking out about it, because you're going to help a lot of other men to finally get the courage to do that too. So I just wanted to say that to you.
I appreciate it. On my behalf, I do a lot with the work that I do. I'm in the group homes, detention centers.
You don't even just have domestic violence. You're doing a lot of other things to advocate for community. So share everything that you're doing.
Well, I'm currently under the Credible Messenger Initiative in the district. So I work with a lot of young men and women who are under the courts. A lot of them have crimes from just being basic runaways to shootings, robberies, things of that nature. I do have a few young
Being
women.
a runaway is a crime?
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Well.
It can. It's looked at that. And the thing of it is
Learn something new here.
It's not necessarily a crime per se, but it becomes a problem when the child is not in the home, and then it becomes even a bigger issuance when the child is not at home and then they're not going to school.
Right.
And I get that mostly from my young women. But then also it's the thing of a lot of times the young women are involved in the sex trade also. So I deal with a lot of young women.
Is anyone else having problems hearing us besides Miss Johnson? Because she's typing in capital letters and she can't hear us. Does anybody else have any problems hearing us? Please let me know. Drop it in the comments. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I deal with a lot of young men and women, and I'm always sharing, the aspects of domestic violence, or just, because I'm also a street intervention specialist as well. So I deal with a lot of high crime, crime issues, and do mediations and things of that nature. And I'm also a restorative justice circle facilitator, and I've been doing that for maybe about 6-7 years almost now. So I'm doing a lot in regards to just trying to change the mindset. What we call it in our field is behavior modification. So I'm trying to change the mindset through the thinking process that we undertake. A lot of times, like if I have a kid and they're listening to a certain set type of music, I ask them, why are you listening to that? What are they saying? So I do a lot of shifting with the thinking, with the kids that I work with, and even with some of the adults, because I find a lot of times the adults, they are not, they're not what's the proper way of saying it? I'm trying to be
Just say it.
okay. They fucked up in their thinking.
Thank you. Okay, just say it.
Okay,
I'm your
right.
girl. Just say it.
Hey,
Y'all cover your eyes, ears. I'm glad y'all can hear me.
Hey.
You have a question from Michelle Ford. Says, Tariq seems to have a pattern. What is he doing differently now in his choices of a partner? Are these multiple women that he is referring to? There's no judgment. I'm genuinely just asking a question.
Want to say that again?
She said it appeared that you had a pattern of getting those type of women, since it is multiple people.
Yeah, I think.
And
it
what
was.
are you doing differently now? Because they usually say, you remember, one of the stigmas too is that a person who's being a victim of domestic violence puts off an aroma.
Yeah.
And continues to attract those type of people, no matter what. And I have to say, I know one person. I'm like, how you keep finding all these women that's accepting this stuff?
Yeah.
So for you, and that recognizing that men probably put off some kind of aroma too, what is it that you think that you changed that prevents you from getting involved in these type of women that were taking advantage of you?
Not dealing with them type of women that I think I need to save. I think that was my biggest issuance. Trying to be that one to save. Because like I said, growing up, I witnessed a lot of domestic violence. So I was always that one that wanted to get, or was attracted to that woman that sort of felt that I needed to be a little more for her. You know what I'm saying? And I think in that process, then I ended up finding out other things that was going on in her life. So now it's like when I meet females now, it's like I'm more acceptable to trying to communicate a lot more about, what type of things was you involved in beforehand, and trying to learn somewhat more of her history instead of just learning her current. Because I think I got stuck with that. I got stuck with that as soon as the curtain is drawn, but not understanding the production behind it. Almost to say.
What's your thoughts about that aroma type of thing that you attract those kind of people?
I do truly believe that's true because my daughter's father was my first abusive relationship, and then my second abusive relationship is in my book. Years later, about 5 years later, I ended up being abused again, and the same situation, but this time instead of a 9 put to my head, it was a shotgun. So yeah, I mean, I do believe that that's true. We as survivors, we attract, I don't know what it is, but I was told, as a matter of fact, by Chris, Queen knows him, he's worked closely with her too. He is one of the people that I promise you everybody needs to meet as far as domestic violence is concerned, because he shares the aspect of the abuser, and he gives everything that an abuser looks for in a person. And he hit me to a lot of stuff. Like, he literally told us that he would plot on women that had low self-esteem, that didn't have any father figure or any brothers or anything like that around. And so that, that was helpful in a lot of ways, because there are people out here, a lot of people are like that, and they just, they lurk and they try to find people that are that way. And maybe I was one of those people at one point.
Do you think it should be some kind of rules when it comes to telling about what you're in need of? For instance, sometimes when we meet somebody, the first thing we're telling them, I was with this man, or I was with this female, and they did XYZ to me. And it opens the door to allow someone to come in like they're going to be our savior.
Nah, I'm not sharing. I had to stop.
You learn to stop sharing.
Because I did that I did that explicitly. Just what you said, word for word, shared with this female all what was going on, and it's like I pretty much just gave her the template on how to just circumvent and enhance her skill that much so better. Because I told her about what I already went through. So now it's like I shared, but I shared to a certain extent. So it's like I said, I want to know more about your history.
So
I have no problem with sharing about myself, but I need to know about them as well.
But if they know that if I'm a person, I'm just gonna if I'm an abuser, and you was to tell me that some people will look at this, because some people will look at a man and they think that you as being weak
It's
is a weakness,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So I might look and be like, if somebody got over on him like that, let me see how much money I could get out of him or something.
And that's what that turned out to be.
Derek Jones says men who look for women to save sometimes have the adverse effect. The women sometimes will see that as a weakness and use it to control them. Extreme givers and savers have problems saying no. Michelle Ford said, I have had one domestic violence relationship in my life. After him, I was out as soon as I saw any red flags in someone. I've been blessed to not experience it again. What are the red flags in the other person that might be like, okay, I need to back up off this female or this male? What do y'all say is a red flag?
It's pretty much like you just gave in the descriptions of the different characteristics of domestic violence. You know, it starts off with the verbal. So when you pay attention to the, just how that person communicates with you. You know, when they cutting you off, when they don't take a lot of severance in how you feel about a certain issue or topic. You know, when they don't give you that interest that you feel that you need or that's warranted. You know, and a lot of times I find we got to stop taking things as being so comical or so lighthearted. You know, it's like I said, going back to when the men are sitting there laughing when they hear about it. But you going through the same thing. We laugh at it so much. We got to be more stringent about, what it is that we want as individuals.
What do you think makes a person goes back to when sometimes people do recognize it, but they continue to go back to that same individual?
Because it's like we both just said. We thinking that it's a better person. We feel like we love them so much that we can change them.
And also, I believe, I didn't mean to cut you off, but financially, a lot of times it's financial situations. Yeah. Some people, I ran into lots of women that don't want to leave their house, their big house in the community, in the school district. And the one lady that I dealt with, her husband was an attorney, and he was in every aspect of abuse. He did it to her, and she did not want to leave because the neighborhood that she lived in. She did not want to leave because her children's school district was so nice. And I kindly, because I don't sugarcoat anything, I kindly let her know that you're going to leave one way or another, and your kids won't be in that school district if you're dead. So, you have to be blunt when it comes to stuff like that. It's nothing to play with. Like I said, I died and was resuscitated due to domestic violence. I lost a cousin. She was murdered, shot 3 times and bludgeoned to death. My mother was beaten for 17 years. It's not anything to play with. So, I would advise anybody, first of all, take your time. Take your time and get to know this person. There's no rush, because that's what I did. I rushed for love. What I thought was to be loved. It's no rush. Take your time and get to know that person. If the person, see how they treat their mother and see how they treat their sisters, their family members. If they treat their mother like crap, 9 times out of 10, they're going to probably treat you the same or worse. So my main thing would be just take your time.
What's your recommendations on therapy?
Oh,
get it.
Definitely.
Get it.
Definitely.
Even while you're in it,
go.
because I recently heard a story. You talking about mothers. Someone clearly recognized things with their mom, and they actually chose to be with the person because they were trying to help the mom, so the mom wouldn't have to deal with the son by themselves. But they're caught up in the whole situation themselves, and having dreams about them possibly dying at the hands of the individual. But there seems to be some kind of for my individual self, I don't need therapy, but I want to fix us. So what do you say to that person that's stuck in that type of situation? I want to have therapy for us, not for me.
Nah, I think therapy is a much needed process. Again, it goes back, a lot of this is based on these stigmas that we've been given for so long.
But therapy for you and the abuser, or should you be looking for therapy for yourself?
Both. I think definitely it's good for the individual because it helps you. But
maybe you're not understanding me. If the person, I'm in an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
my focus is more on getting therapy for us.
Oh no. They need therapy for themselves, and they need to get out of that. You can't, I'm beyond trying to save anybody else now. If I'm in a relationship and it's not good, I'm stepping out. That's just it, and that's all. I'm not trying to save, that person, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I tell any female the same thing. You don't know what's going to happen, so you need to get out of that. But the therapy itself for that individual is definitely needed.
Right.
That I definitely say you need, because you got to understand that for you to have to go through something so dramatic as what you went through, you have to know how to go about. It's almost like a flush. When you cleanse yourself, you got to be able to deal with that trauma and knowing how to better enhance yourself. And you're not going to do that staying with the poison that you're dealing with.
Exactly.
I'm a cancer survivor. I don't get going to remission by still dealing with the things that I dealt with that got me to cancer. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? You don't get over a cold by still staying around the germs. You get away from the germs.
I like that.
Right.
I like that. I like that. Do you guys have anything that you're going to be speaking at? Because I'm going a little bit over, but I don't see the next people in here. that you any events that you're planning on speaking at, or how do they get in touch with you too? I don't think you shared that.
I'm out in the city, just any and everywhere. If anybody wants to reach me, basically through the speaking engagements that I've been doing, I've been just asked by Queen Afee to just, she'll hit me with a text or hit me with an email or call me. Or somebody will hit me up and say that Queen, gave me your number. So, I don't have anything stringently how to get in touch with them outside of just giving my phone number.
Okay, I'm sorry for the people on my watch party. Shell Shabrooks Jackson says, "Hey Renee, my cousin, I love you." She's on my watch party. That means she has to be a friend with me already. Hi, Shell. Wanda Floyd said, "I told my daughter's fiance if he ever feels that he wants to lay hands on her, make her feel less than a woman than she is, or have to feel that he has controlled her in any way, or just don't want her anymore, to please bring her back to me, because I want and love her. Mm-hmm. It would be to his best benefit to leave her unharmed than to deal with a crazy mother and family who loves her very much. As I have always told my sons, never put your hands on a woman. Walk, run, do whatever you have to keep your hands to yourself. Not only that, talk, not scream, communicate effectively without threats and violent actions. This does not mean you can't express yourself with emotions and feelings, but it's how you have to do that. You can't save a person who don't want to save themselves, but you are responsible for saving yourself.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Well, I have a few upcoming events. Well, Queen always keep me, if she rocking, I'm rolling. Whatever she has me doing a few things with the DC Police Department and a few other events that are coming up. But you can find them on my Facebook page, Rene Michelle. And also I'm speaking at Townsend University on the 27th of this month. But like I said, all of the things that my upcoming events, and I don't just speak in October because I wear this purple hair for a reason. Like I said, it's for domestic violence and epilepsy, because I have both. I've dealt with both. At any rate, I don't just speak in October. I speak all year round, So, but you can find me at Rene Michelle, RENE accent MICHELLE on all of my social media. And hey, Shell.
All right, guys. So with that, we are going to wrap up. I might have to have a discussion with them possibly of coming back and bringing somebody from the abuser aspect of it. I actually had one of my guests. Oh, I think it's next week that one of my guests. Yeah, it's next week. Oh, the snakes aren't night. Okay, guys, your girl Tasha gonna have snakes in the studio.
Oh God,
that's 2 Mondays from now. But next week, my guest next week, I think that she had to postpone because of health issues. So I don't know, you guys. We might be continuing this next week because I don't have a guest for next week as of last night. So look back for us. We have to bring this to an end. Remember, the number is 1-800-799-SAFE-72333. Also, if you are in most areas, there are family justice centers too. Prince George's County, they did send me some information. Their number is 301-780-8008. Look for Rene and Tariq both to put some comments in on this show with their information as well too, so that you can find them, or look me up on Facebook, Latasha, Latasha Carpenter, and I can get you in touch with them too. Or you can call my Google number 240-545-5695, because if you stalk me, I got you. 240-545-5695.
I need to get one of those.
Good night, guys.
Good night. Good night.
Lady who walks around without being shady, who knows her values, who's gone through trials. Her smiles are captured from mouth to mouth. It's not the size of her thighs she worries about, but the pride she thrives to keep that drive. That cinnamon twist. That cinnamon twist.